In part one of ADEIL's interview with Dr. Newt and Miller, we talked about how inspirational teachers and students have shaped his teaching, particularly teaching at potential students. As our conversation continued, Dr. Newt shared more insight and ideas on how he might lead a school. Now, here's another question. So I read that you hope to start a school that provides an alternative way for urban and rural youth to complete high school and pursue higher education. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I must have said that somewhere because you're not the only person that said that to me. So I think I was probably projecting an inner dream that I didn't mean to say out loud. but
it resonated.
I've helped to start right. I've helped to start a couple charter schools and alternative schools in my time, either as an administrator, K-12 administrator, or just, whatever the case may be. Yeah. But I believe that urban education in particular is, for the most part, being done incorrectly. So if you look at Paulo Freire, he says, listen, education is going to do two things. It's either going to teach the next generation to conform to how things are always done so that they're better at doing things the way that they're always done. No change, right? Or it's going to liberate. It's going to help us to transform our thinking so that we can find new ways to solve problems, to find solutions to different problems, right? So that we can do what? Transform our society from where it is to where it can possibly go. So Paulo Freire, I think that's brilliant. I think, like we could stop right there, drop the mic, whenever you're talking about education, right? Mm-hmm. But if you know anything about him, he worked with villagers, and helped them to, he educated them through necessity, through, the goods and products they were growing and serving and offering so that they could survive, right? So if you translate that into the urban arena, you're looking at urbanized students that come with a whole, let's call it a capital, a cultural capital that often goes unnoticed because that cultural capital fits the culture or the standard operating procedure of the environments in which those schools exist. Mm-hmm. But the folks that work in those schools often are not urbanites, or if they are have acclimated to this set of, let's call it this etiquette code, if you will, of how school should happen. What do you look like as a good student? What does that sound like? What does that look like? And those things often do not match the behaviors and the tendencies outside of the four walls in that urban community. So that means that I have students coming to my school with a wealth of cultural capital that I'm not tapping into, because the moment they walk in my school, I tell them that the way they do things is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm automatically putting a lid on them, pushing them down, telling them that they what's right to them doesn't match here. Your your natural tendencies are off point. And here, let me tell you how you should be. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens when they walk into our schools. So that's why I say I think urban education, for the most part, is being done incorrectly. Yeah. So if I was to have a school, if I was to have a school, mm-hmm. I would want, first of all, you got to have discipline, and there has to be respect and the communication, that has to happen, just period. That's just human, that's society. So some things that we need to know, first of all, with the generation that we're serving, especially it's just Gen Z right here, respect is not given, respect is earned. So it goes back to what I said before that Mr. Social taught me. We have to go first as educators. I have to go first and lay me on the line and show you how valuable you are then you're open to me and we can make some progress as far as relating goes and back and forth. But I think that the whole educational experience should be one that's built in inquiry. So it's inquiry based. It's totally problem-based learning. So there's always a problem. There's always a reason this thing means something. It's not just algebraic concepts. I'm not saying not to learn algebra. I'm a mathematician. I love it, right? But someone taught me to see the connection between the math and the engineering, the math and the physics, and creating something with it. That often doesn't happen, especially now with this generation, where this generation is all about a mouse click. That wasn't my generation. There was some time in between. But now you can go on the screen and click a mouse and in seconds have, an answer, connect to the World Wide Web. Yeah. So this generation they need to see connections. They need to see why they're doing a thing. They need to understand the value of it. So problem-based learning answers that problem. It's a problem already. So I'm starting from the problem. Yeah. I'm taking an inquiry approach. What do you think about this problem? How would you solve it? Now we go into Socratic discussion where everyone's questions, everyone's ideas matter. Let's get this on the table. Let's learn this engineering process, if you will, even if you're talking about literature. And then, from there, we can start to do what is a high impact practice. I don't know if you're familiar with George Kuh. He talks a lot about high impact practices. Okay. George Kuh, Kuh. And one of those high impact practices is common intellectual experience. He has 11 of them. Okay. And that common intellectual experience means that there is a problem or an issue that the community is going to solve. They're going to solve it together, or they're going to solve it in pods, and they're going to come back together with some kind of presentation to show what they learned, show what their perspective or their solution was. And from that's how you measure it. Actually, as a teacher, that's how we measure they display or show their mastery of the content, of course, demonstrate mastery. But to them, they're presenting their idea. They're presenting their thoughts. So in an urban arena, not only does it make your voice matter, which up to now probably never has. Up to now, you've probably been told the way you think, the way you do things in order to even just survive outside of the school walls is wrong. The way you dress, your language, whatever the case may be, is not acceptable in a corporate setting. You're going to have to do something different in order to survive. So up till now, you've been told that you're not enough. Now I'm in an educational setting that usually tells me I'm not enough, that's showing me that I am enough and more and can solve things that haven't been solved before. And they're valuing my solution and giving me an opportunity to debate intelligently and intellectually with my peers. Mm-hmm. That's education. That's growth. I think as educators in the urban arena, especially, we have to see the potential of our students. We have to understand that they're at the point of potential where anything can happen. Potential energy is defined by that energy that's just sitting in place, waiting to do work. And I measure that potential energy by its mass, by its volume, by what it can do. But there's no motion yet. Me as the educator, I get to help facilitate the thoughts and the thinking process, further the critical thinking, get that seed in the book I have, put that seed in the environment where it can grow. Yeah. That's all I'm doing. I think we have to change we have to change our perspective as educators from being just that content expert to being that facilitator of thought processes. Yes, I'm going to give you the content, but you got me on a roll here, Rich. So if we think about it, our students don't even really need us to learn the content. Mm-mm. They can go to Khan Academy, Blue Letter Math, YouTube. They Google. They can learn the content. They don't need me for the content. What they need me to do is to help them understand thought processes, to help facilitate their thinking in a logical and sequential way, to help them rein in the what ifs that come up when they think about the content. That's what they need me for. As educators, we're facilitators. Yeah. We do what Paulo Freire is saying, we help liberate thinking. We help get them outside of the box. The greatest thing that happens in a class for me when I'm working with my students is when they come up with a what if or a scenario that I don't know the answer to. I love it. Mm-hmm. That means that you are learning. And you know what I do? I say, I don't know. Go back to the internet and come back and tell me what you come up with. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that takes them to a whole nother level. It takes me to a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. And it takes the conversation in the classroom. So now we've all moved. We've all been cultivated. We've all moved from one state of being to another. So if I was to do open the school and do things differently with our urban educators, urban students, which is your original question, I would want that school to be, first of all, I don't know how many rules it would have as far as the policies and the rules that a lot of urban schools have now, which they say are safety based. I mean, of course, we're going to be safety minded. But I think I would want to start with a small group of students. Yes. I think I would want to take that group of students, and the whole premise for the educators would be action research. So they're continuously researching, continuously motivating, modifying what they're doing so that we create this cycle of continuous improvement in as far as instruction is concerned. But everything would start from a problem. So we would have a list of problems, I don't know, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade problems by subject that we could approach thematically as teams of teachers. So that there's this group mindset to everything we do, because if we look at industry, those are the skills that they're asking for now. How do we work together as a team remotely to solve this problem or create this new product or do whatever it is we want to do? So I would take that approach with our students. Start with the problem, teach the whole inquiry model, induced or driven by that Socratic discussion, and then me as the educator, what we need to do is map all of that back to the standards so that we can demonstrate mastery of those standards and assess them accordingly. I think if we approach urban students that way, bringing in their cultural capital from that problem solving model, you'll flip upside down the attitude that they have about school. So I don't know if they'll ever like school, because I really don't like school. I love education, right? But we'll flip that upside down to the point where they'll jump in, 2 hands, 2 feet, and see the need to integrate this whole idea of education into what they're doing, especially with this generation, because they are so entrepreneurial minded. Yeah. The younger millennials and the Gen Zs are about entrepreneurship. They are, in the hood, we call it, they're about the hustle. They're going to find, what do I offer and how can I make money with it? So if you add into that flavor education and what it brings and where it can put you and seat you, if you take that flavor, mix it together, now you're in a corporate setting where you're impacting what that corporation is doing, but you're in a room now where you're changing principles and ideas such that doors are now opening for other people that otherwise would not have had that opportunity.
It was wonderful chatting with Newt and Miller, sharing ideas and insights. Our interview series closes with some of my favorite comments from Dr. Newt.
Say I have a peach seed in my hand, right? So if I was to walk in the room and say, hey guys, what do I have in my hand? Most people say a peach seed, right? Because that's what they see.
Yes.
But as educators, we have to look farther than we can see. I understand as an educator, I have to look farther than I can see. So I don't see a peach seed when I look at it. I see a peach tree. I see a peach tree that has 40 or 50 peaches on it that have seeds in them, that if I can put those seeds in the right environment, they'll produce another peach tree that has seeds that, that can, and that cycle can continue to go. So I think educators are the most powerful people on the planet, because that's what we do. We perpetuate the greatness, the unseen greatness that's in each of our students.
Yeah.
We put it in the right environment for it to grow, to thrive, and to produce. We have to go first. We have to put what I call an accommodation package out for those students. We have to know already where the weaknesses, deficits, and struggles are. So what I do is I build those supports into my courses, especially online. It's a whole lot easier to do online than it is face-to-face.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I build those supports into the courses. So when they come into my course, I tell them, listen, in my class, here's what I do. I have relaxed deadlines. I have weekly examples of exemplars. So you know what an A looks like before you start your paper. I do a weekly video to break down for you just what you need to do this week. I give you a weekly chart, a week at a glance chart, so you can know what you need to do and the estimated time that it might take you to do it. I give you my cell phone number, so you have access to me at all times. So I tell them those things ahead of time. So I end that up by saying, listen, I want you to succeed. I have your back. And I proved it by doing all these things. So when I'm talking to educators, especially face-to-face, I'm in the live arenas and I see them, I can see them kind of zone out on me because they'll say, oh, he's not talking to me. I don't work with that potential students. I work with honors in honors college, or, I have the doctoral students or the master's degree, and I want you to know that you have at potential students on all levels. And if you don't think you do, that's okay. Yeah. But what I'm saying to you, this thought, this process, these approaches, if you can apply them across the board for all students, you'll see an increase. They're just good principles. Yeah. You'll see a good increase in all of your students. Socraticism is Socraticism. Inquiry-based is inquiry-based. Problem-solving is problem-solving. Positive reinforcement is positive reinforcement. A student being able to contact you is powerful for any student. I'll give you a real quick example. A course that just ended for me, this graduate course. There was a young lady in the course. I did my usual thing. I put all my accommodations up first. I tell them what I do for them. So exhale, I have your back. Let's enjoy the ride. This student emails me right away saying, Dr. Miller, I think it's great that you do all these things, for the students that need them. And, for those of us that don't, I just she wanted to say, good job and great job for being a good educator for those that do. So she was saying she's not ever going to need any of those accommodations that I put in place, right? Well, it was about week 3, week 4 in the course. She texted me because I give them all my cell phone number. Mm-hmm. She texted me and said, Dr. Miller, I am so embarrassed. I told my husband, and here's her words. I told my husband that this teacher, he allows relaxed deadlines and everything. I'll never need that because my poop is in a group. That was her words, right? She said, I'm so embarrassed because life happened, and she began to tell me the things that happened, and I need some extra time, right? So I'm giving that story. That happens often, but I'm giving you that story to say, put the accommodations there. Assume all your students are at potential so you can get past the little stuff and ramp up your instruction so you can increase the rigor and relevance of the instruction. And those students that need those things, they'll use them. The ones that don't, they won't. No foul, no harm. But I guarantee you a student that otherwise would not have needed them, every now and again, they're going to dip into that bag and use that benefit that you're offering them. So especially in that online model, especially in this online model, because students do not go to school online unless there's a reason. Let me say it backwards. There's a reason students go to school online. It's convenient. It's access. They can continue their life and still get their education.